I always try to coach other people, managers and leaders. When people are losing motivation, sometimes people think, oh, because they're not making enough money or other things. But there are a lot of people who go into the flow and the worker's high when they're even working on free projects and nonprofit projects. And why did I do that? Is because people find this intrinsic motivation in the work they do. And then that can help you get into the worker's high. Hi, my name is John, founder CEO of Sendbird. Sendbird is an AI communication platform. We basically power customer communication inside mobile applications on apps like DoorDash, PayPal, and Match Group. Today, we power over 320 million people on a monthly basis who have conversations through our platform. We have launched the world in 2016 January during a program called Y Combinator. And since then, we have raised over $220 million from world-class investors like Iconic Capital, Tiger Global, and SoftBank Vision Fund. I'm a software engineer by trade. I started my first company right out of college back in late 2007. We made multiple different games. Ultimately, we had about 5 million users in total. And then eventually, our company was acquired by a company in Japan called R.A.M.P. And then that was 2012. So after selling my first company, I started my second company with the basically buddies from my first startup. So that was back in 2013. The intent was to create a consumer-based application for families and parents. And initially, we launched a product called Smile Mom, grew to about 250,000 users, where 90% of the users were coming from the United States. So eventually, we thought we wanted to come to the US to build a global startup. But unfortunately, it was very clear that our consumer product was not going to be the next Facebook for parents. But it was around 2015 when the world was talking about messaging. So WhatsApp, Telegram, WeChat, Line, and Kakao. These messaging apps were really the top of the news across all the media. So people were talking a lot about conversational experiences. That's where we got the inspiration to build messaging experience for our own consumer product. So as a buyer, because we had built chat 3-4 times in our previous gaming startup, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We wanted to figure out what to do next with our company. So we did a hackathon, pulled that out into an API product, and start kind of selling on the side. And that started to kind of take off. We had 20 paying customers with that second idea. So we applied to Y Combinator with that idea, and luckily we were accepted. So we launched it in 2016, and the rest is history. I haven't really heard of worker's high, but I think the word just intuitively makes sense. When you think about any kind of work, especially people in the startup scene, where people are kind of self-driven and works with a lot of self-agency, I think it just ultimately comes down to people with a lot of kind of dopaminergic responses. So when you're kind of like working on a project that you really care about or curious about, there's a lot of brain activities that probably has a lot of dopamine responses. And also when you're working on something that's very, very challenging, probably you have some testosterone responses. So probably through that kind of virtuous cycle of two different hormones working together, I'm sure people kind of fall into the zone and really kind of lose track of time. When I'm working, I generally fall into the zone or into the flow quite often. And usually when I'm working, even when somebody talks to me or interrupt me, I rarely get distracted. And I really am grateful that I am kind of wired this way. But really it's when I'm working on certain, let's say, even small things like working on a document or creating a spreadsheet for our, let's say, compensation metrics for our sales team or executive team, or talking to customers when creating a deck that we want to pitch and present to our customers, or even like materials for our board meeting. So whenever I'm kind of working on a project that has, high sense of urgency and it's very critical to the business, I do fall into the flow quite easily. And but even dating back when I was a software engineer, when I'm kind of working on those kind of development projects, I can spend 4 hours, 6 hours straight just without even standing up. So one of the most expensive furniture we have at our houses, whether it be at a dining table or at our home office, is always a chair. Because it's the one furniture that your body probably touches the longest and most often. So I want to make sure that when we are sitting down, it's good for our body, the posture, although my legs are crossed, which is terrible, don't do that. It's really, can this chair really support me so that I can focus on the work in the worker's eye? And probably second most important thing are the desks and other accessories to help me organize my working environment, so that I want to make sure that we are prioritizing chair and the desk and the organizer, so that we can really immerse ourselves in the worker's eye. I don't think I do something special, but it's really about having the intrinsic motivation about the work. So there are really 4 pillars in finding intrinsic motivation. The acronym is R.A.M.P, R-A-M-P. So relatedness, are you working with people that you really love and care and kind of share the core values? Second is autonomy. So do you have the autonomy around tools and resources to make decisions about your own work and where it's going? M is mastery. So are you constantly learning and growing in terms of career and skill sets? Lastly is purpose. So are you part of something that's bigger than yourself? Can you find meaning in the work? So I always try to coach other people, managers and leaders. When people are losing motivation, sometimes people think, oh, because they're not making enough money or other things. But there are a lot of people who go into the flow and the worker's high when they're even working on free projects and nonprofit projects. And why did I do that? Is because people find this intrinsic motivation in the work they do. And when they're in that, intrinsically motivated and in the working environment that's kind of suitable, that really allows you to focus on the work. And then that can help you get into the worker's side. 1, the leaders have to lead from the front. So people who have a lot of experience building at his company needs to actually be here, not just do some online Googling and research. They have to spend time on the ground, understand the local ecosystem, the partners, so that they can soak in the cultural aspect as well as just really meeting the customers on the ground and then forming that relationship and the network. Not just send some junior person and have that person do some research. The leaders have to come to the market and lead from the front. So I think that's 1. 2 is really leveraging the power of software and technology. So how do we then leverage those software to even superpower the company across outside of Korea? Because the moment you cross these borders across different languages and culture and time zone, now we have to really rely on cross-cultural, cross-border collaboration. And a lot of those collaboration can be facilitated using software. Those are probably 2 of the most useful advice that I gave.